Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, the Song of Ice and Fire 2, the return to the co-host switcheroo, the rereading, Return to Westeros, HBO spoiler edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV, bringing you the greatest hits from this year, apparently, because we covered the show, but also 1998. Call in with your requests now. In this episode, we are going to be covering chapters 42 and 43, Daenerys and Arya. Daenerys is a very innocent young woman who does not understand the ways of war, but she thrashes some asses anyway, and Arya gets some bad news and runs right into trouble. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
All right, back to the book.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Weird to come back to the books.
It
Time
feels
traveling.
odd, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree. How did you like go back and reread anything or just jump right into it?
I just jumped in. I had thought
same.
about going back and rereading a chapter or two to try to remember where we were when we left, but then I just realized that I didn't have that kind of time and energy.
It's fine, I think. we remember enough, in my opinion. And of course, we have Austin's notes, so that's also helpful. I really, my main thing that I want to know about for these, though, is what did you think of the Daario Naharis? Because he's got the same vibe as the one from the show, but his look has a different look.
His look is very, very different. I remember people being really disappointed with the show that they didn't fully lean into how he was depicted in the book. Mm-hmm. And I had seen some art with his three pronged blue beard and everything. So I was a little familiar with this, but it was fun to read the whole thing because you really miss out if you're not reading exactly how he is described in the book, because it is a whole scene.
It is.
I mean, everything from not just the hair, the beard, the painted nails, the dress all in yellow, which they didn't do that on the show either, I don't think.
I don't remember it.
Which even if you weren't going full on with the hair and the makeup and everything, you could have still dressed him like that and given us something, but they chose not to. And
everybody looks the same to a degree in the show if they're not like a main character, and I lament that.
Yeah, this is and we had gotten some really cool descriptions of this scary people earlier on in the book, and some crazy hairstyles that didn't really make it onto the show and all that. So I knew that there was more coming, that we would meet more characters, and I'd see them in the book wholly different than how they appeared on the show. But this was definitely something special.
The notes from Austin I find very amusing, which is we meet Daario Naharis, who is different looking, which is italicized, than in the show. I get in the show Dany has a thing for him. Here I can only say she's 14. And, not only is she 14, but she's been like raised in a place where the extremity of how people dress already, like standard, is pretty much, she was married to a horse lord who had a very particular look and now associates that kind of, I don't want to say like exact type of fashion because it's not the same, but that sort of flamboyance, I think, with like manliness and prowess. So I could see kind of just the vibe of him combined with like, oh, and he's like kind of peacocking with this wild look that a lot of dudes would not be able to pull off. I like that.
She's definitely into it, you know. And I mean, he does deliver the heads of her foes, which is, you know, really underrated aphrodisiac.
That's gonna be a quick way to a girl's heart.
I don't know if guys listening or anyone actually who might want a woman's heart is listening. If you are unsure how to go about getting it, this is definitely a way to go.
Yeah, you're pretty much not going to fail, mostly.
I was just thinking and lamenting to myself the other day because I happened across something, and I was thinking how I have to really reconcile with the fact that I will probably never get the satisfaction of seeing people that I know personally to be absolute pieces of shit, never getting their full due publicly, right? Like every once in a while I'll see somebody and I'm just like, oh, you still fuck with them? God. When is the truth going to come out?
Yep, I completely get it.
And then being like, you know what? It probably never will.
It won't.
You know, and then even if it does, my truth versus their truth, who knows what anyone is going to believe. And I might never really get the satisfaction that I am desperate for. And then I read this chapter and he just dropped 2 heads in her lap. And I was like, why can't it just be this easy?
Amen. It could be. This could be us be playing kind of energy. But yeah, I really do kind of when she was describing him and how different he is from Jorah, especially the description for Jorah is the kind of dude that I would be into now. Big, hairy, like kind of like barrel shaped, you know, dad bod. I'm into it. But what she's describing for Daario is much more like Legolas, but with quite a beard and blue. The whole thing is very different, but it's got the same sort of like lithe, hairless, very pretty kind of look that I went for when I was a lot younger, and appropriately, I think. Yeah. So it makes sense to me that she would just be like, yeah, no, the other dude feels like a different species from me and I'm not interested. But this guy, he is like almost as pretty as me. Right. And I kind of like that. Anyway, all right, let's back it up to the beginning where she's going to find out exactly how many of the opposing army there are and gets sort of a report on what she can expect as far as skill from all of them. And what this is she is approaching Yunkai, who has been warned because of Astapor of her intentions. Yeah,
word is out. They don't have the element of surprise they had with Astapor, and so Yunkai is been able to marshal up their forces. And they're sort of surveying the crowd and getting an idea of what they're in store for. And it's a pretty impressive number of folks. But when you start breaking it down to see what this sort of mass is really comprised of, it becomes clear that there's only, there's like 500 men on horse. There's a lot of slaves. There's and this recurring thing about how Yunkai is not known for raising slave warriors the way Astapor is sort of renowned for. Like, apparently their niche is sex work. And there's all these references to, like, how they're pillow whisperers and what is one of it? The
pillow whisperers.
The way of the 7 sighs and the 16 seats of pleasure, which as an aside, color me intrigued.
Right. I was thinking that too. I was like, this is like that episode of Friends where they try and explain the various places that are erogenous zones to Chandler because he's dating one of Joey's ex-girlfriends and she doesn't agree with him in bed as forcefully as she agreed with Joey.
Oh, I vaguely remember that. Oh my God. Did you see that fucking thing that Matthew Perry said? Not to get us derailed.
Oh, about fucking Keanu Reeves and why is he still alive?
I was so incensed.
Listen,
I was
Matthew Perry, no offense, but you are not somebody to
full
be
offense.
Wondering.
Full fucking offense. Full offense. And when I saw it, the place I saw it, my comment was just like, you know what? This motherfucker is projecting. All he wants to know is how come he's not dead yet. That's the question he's asking. He's got all these friends that died from abusing drugs and alcohol, and you're still alive, and you have weird survivor's guilt, and you're projecting, and you're taking it out on Keanu, who, a lot of you kids are young, you don't remember, but there was a time years ago in the old 1990s where people shit on Keanu all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a running joke everywhere to just talk about, I can't believe this guy's famous. I can't believe this guy's an actor. He's the worst,
Mm-hmm.
And
to be honest, a lot of that was earned. I think personally, he was not great in a lot of stuff.
He had this weird thing that happened to him in the 90s. I've always liked Keanu, but I don't know if people remember, but he would get cast in these movies playing opposite absolute fucking legends.
Yep.
He would be in these movies and be so outmatched and outclassed. Like, he was in a fucking movie with the fuck is his name? Malkovich and Glenn Close in fucking Dangerous Liaisons. You remember that he was in that?
I have always wanted to see it because of the fact that he is in it with them.
You've never seen it?
No, I've seen Cruel Intentions. I don't need to see it.
Well played.
Yep.
Well played. But
the one that I watched recently with Owen was Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman.
Oh yeah.
And he is wooden. It is upsetting what a juicy kind of like potential he had here that he did nothing with. And it is so every scene he's in comes grinding to an absolute halt. He's trying to do a British accent, but all he really does is that sort of Tyrion Lannister, like, I will just enunciate slightly more.
I saw that in
English.
I went to see that in the movies, and I was well, this is a free podcast, so but I went to see that in the movies.
I think we can all infer what she was at the time.
I remember like the absolute hype machine around that movie, and all of my friends, we were all like, can't wait to see it. And then just being like, well, that was a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was the kind of thing where they were doing a very stylized thing, but I think a lot of folks weren't ready for that walking into it. And I know when I watched it, I wasn't quite ready and had to sort of adjust myself as I was watching and was like, oh, they're just being like real ridiculous kind of in the way the original property is, to be honest. But we're used to everything being like darkened up and serious, and it's a vampire, but we've got this dude climbing on the walls with his weird Queen of Hearts hair.
Oh my god, seeing that and being as unprepared as we were, I was definitely unprepared for what we got. And the state I was in, it was one of the wildest movie-going experiences I have ever had. I just remember sitting in the dark theater with my girls and being like, how high am I?
Oh, God.
Just like leaning over to check in. I'm like, are you seeing this?
Maybe I'm just deeply misinterpreting everything on the screen. It can't be what it looks like, which is insane. Anyway,
so,
the seats of the 7 size or 16 season, whatever. You guys all know what we're talking about.
And just that sort of the army is impressive and it's a large number, but when you get down to the nitty gritty, what they really have against Dany is swords for hire. You know, they've got this fucking the Second Sons, and I forget what the other one is called.
Sons of the Harpy? No, that's another guy.
No.
The Storm Crows?
Yes, the Storm Crows. That's the other one. And I love fucking Grey Worm. This little bit we get about Grey Worm, who is not impressed about any of this.
Not even a little.
Like, not even a little bit bothered. And is one of the ones that's like, nah, we don't have to worry about them. They're not those kind of slaves. We are built entirely different. So it's not gonna be a problem. And yeah, she has like her counsel, you know, telling her what she can expect and everything. And I love that the line that you put in the intro is a joke. This kind of refrained, I'm just a young girl and not really, learning in the ways of war or whatever she says.
Yep.
And then by the end of the chapter, we have her like having this resounding success because everything that she said worked out perfectly.
It's so great. I love this so much. It's just such a nice moment of getting to see her being really smart and predicting how she's going to be taken without anybody else in the room having to give her the idea. This is all her. Even her own people are kind of for a second like, wait, really?
Yeah.
And she has to be like, yes, really. Go do what I fucking said. And then it's
at one
flawless victory.
One point, somebody's like, well, this juror, he's like, but you said it would give 3 days. Like he was outraged. I'm like, so we are in a war here, sir.
What do you think
is happening?
We're dealing with slavers whom I don't care if I like break my word to them, but she doesn't break her word anyway because she never said, I'm not attacking you until 3 days are up. So, yeah, very good. Very good. Also, what I really enjoy about her just being like, well, I'm just a young girl. There is this like bit in Parks and Rec where Aziz Ansari's character accidentally, when they're on like a group hunting trip, shoots Ron in like the leg or shoulder or something. And it comes out that he doesn't even have his hunting license. So if they have like when the Rangers come, they have to lie about who shot Ron. Otherwise he could go to jail. So she decides that she's going to say that she shot Ron, and yet hates being seen as incompetent, which is the only explanation for how she shot him. And the park ranger is just assuming out of the gate a lot about her because, Leslie is a tiny little blonde woman, and she starts to get really mad and then realizes, okay, but if I want him to believe that it was me, I gotta let go of that. So she begins leaning into it and being like, well, a fly landed on me and I had just gotten my nails done and I just moved really fast. And I have my period right now and I'm just like kind of stressed out. And then it's like a montage of her saying progressively more ridiculous things as this guy nods. And eventually at the end, she's just like, yeah, I was really bad at math in school. Like just like completely irrelevant shit. And that's kind of the thing that I appreciate because I know that there are going to be times where you need to pretend to be less competent than you are to like get by or make something work. And man, my pride hates that. I don't like having to play that game. It sucks. Yeah. And I really appreciate how immediate the payoff is here. She doesn't have to pretend to be incompetent for a long time. She does it for an afternoon and then is like, all right, now kill her ass. It's so satisfying. I love it.
Yeah. It's the weaponizing of the other person's perception of you. As always, whenever it's a kind of thing that I feel like you see a lot more in fiction than we get to experience in real life, but every once in a while an opportunity will present itself where you get to do that and it can be quite satisfying.
Yes.
But it's for me, the amount of time you have to pretend to be incompetent for the payoff is what ends up ruining the whole thing.
Agreed.
So I agree with you. The fact that she gets some satisfaction fairly quickly made this much more tolerable. Like if I had to read several chapters of her pretending to be incompetent, I would probably get really bored and irritated fast.
Yep. Yeah, this is also a thing in any show where there is a woman going in disguise somewhere. Like Veronica Mars. She has to pretend to be a real ditz who doesn't know anything about computers in order to get these guys to like lower their guard around her and say shit they shouldn't because they just don't think she's even going to understand.
Yeah.
And I really admire that she can set aside her irritation with the way they make all these presumptions because I just feel like I would blow my own cover immediately and be like, you know what? I know everything you just said, you fuck. And then they'd turn around with guns and I'd be like,
oh, that's right.
So yeah, this whole thing is a series of meetings with the leaders of what do they call, go by the wise masters. is the thing that she's told by Miss Andy that they like call themselves, and the leaders of the free companies, and trying to convince them to defect and come to her.
Yeah.
Or just at least take her seriously as an adversary. They are all very certain that, I think, as a woman is the predominant thing, but also with just the smaller numbers that she has, it's not going to be on her side.
They don't seem well. It's weird because they are presenting themselves as if they are not worried about her at all. But they also, one of them makes her an offer to basically pay her to just fucking leave them alone and go away. And I love when she's having the conversation with Jorah and Grey Worm, and when they're talking about potential strategies, one of the first things she says is that any slave that puts their weapon down or runs, let them go. Like, don't go after them to kill them. Because the more survivors there are, the more likely they are to join her cause in the end. Which definitely shows, her smarts, and her understanding of not just how you fight a battle, but how you potentially win a longer war, and when she's having the meeting, she says, I want you to bring these guys, tell these guys I want them to come visit me, this one at this hour, this one a couple hours later or whatever. And they each show up and they're all different, but yet they're all exactly the same person. And something about that I really enjoyed as well. And I don't know if it's meant to be, but it just lends the sort of how tedious this is.
Yes.
These fucking swollen, egoed men are going to show up and talk down to her, and and you could just switch out one for the fucking other. They're all the same.
It's like, I'm going to threaten to either rape you myself or have you raped by my horses. Who knows? But I know there's going to be a threat of rape in there somewhere because I'm a woman and you have no imagination. Okay, got it. And I love that, like, when she's meeting with that trio, Prindle, Nazgezin. Oh, man. These names.
Good luck with all that.
There's another dude as well. I can't remember his...
Salor the Bald and Dario.
That's the trio. And as they're leaving, the two don't look over their shoulder, but Dario glances back and, like, gives her a little, like, goodbye. Yeah. Like, he's real polite about it. So when he comes back later, he's like, hey, you remember me? I was nice to you a little bit.
Yeah, when he shows up and they tell her who it is, it's like outside and they're all worried, we got a spy. And they tell her who it is. She's like, oh, him? Yeah, send him in. I'll see him. This one guy, this Prindle guy, he's fucking... You would do well to take your rabble rouser.
Oh, it's like that. Okay.
And go back to where you came from is basically what he's
essentially. Yep. And then there's the bastard of the Titan, or Titan's bastard. Yeah,
that guy
Nero.
that comes later. Yeah, that's the I'll rape you guy. And like all of these references to his dick, like it went on forever, you guys.
So much.
Oh, I had one that tried to take it off with her teeth one time, and then she didn't have any teeth left. Was that really necessary in the story, George R.R. Martin?
It does sound like the kind of thing this guy would say, though.
It kind of does. It kind of does. And
do you remember the actor who played this dude? I probably don't, because it's like one episode.
No, not at all.
He is played by Mark Killeen, who I went and looked up just now. And both you and I, when we were talking about the show, this man is fine as hell. Really? And it was very upsetting to us both that he is such an utter piece of shit, because he is just beautiful to look at.
I don't remember him
like
at
really
all.
Upsetting. Yeah, he is beautiful. Well, and I just went and looked up his picture now, and I'm like, oh, right. God damn.
All right, I'm going to have to go.
He's a little bit more of a silver fox at this point. Ooh, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Yeah, he's the one that's like, I'll have some of that wine. Maybe a little bit. Maybe a couple barrels. How about a whole wagon?
Give you a wagon full for just the funsies, because I'm generous and there's no ulterior motive to it, for sure.
And oh, there he is. Oh yeah. All right, now I. Oh, here's a really cool little fan fiction of him. Is this as Miro as I don't know what this is. I guess he's kind of black. Huh?
What? A fan fiction? Where
I'm sorry, I should have said like fan art.
Where he looks black?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
I'm going to send it to you. I mean, I don't know where it's from. It just popped up in my images when I went to look for Miro. But it looks like.
Oh, that's right. He's the one that had like a naked girl in his lap the whole time that he talked to Daenerys.
It's all coming back to me now.
Yep. And I would not have minded being him.
But yeah, he is really like enjoying this sort of sparring that's going back and forth between him and Daenerys, and how can I? It's like, oh, you're a saucy little wench. It's this whole fucking vibe, you know?
Yes.
Like, I said I was just going to come in here and tell you that, like, I'm going to have somebody rape you and then I was going to leave and this wouldn't be any fun at all. But this is kind of fun.
He says something at the end. I would enjoy the taste of your tongue, I think.
Yes.
And I was just like, God, that is the foulest thing I've ever heard in my life. I threatened to rape her, and this is somehow worse. I don't know why.
Did not know what to do with that particular comment. I could just like it was wildly open for interpretation. I was like, is this a threat of yanking her tongue out? Or is this like, are we flirting now?
I think that's him flirting.
There's a real fine line between the two.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jorah is in the corner
heated.
seething. He does not like all this flirty talk and all the sexual innuendo and is not here for any of it. And soon as he leaves, Jorah is on his fucking pedestal, warning Daenerys she shouldn't trust him. He's got an evil reputation. We even know about him in Westeros.
Isn't it Arston that's the first one to like warn her? And I feel like because Jorah says something like, "Oh, for once you should listen to this guy."
You're right. It's Arston that says the stuff about the reputation, and then Arston is like, "Yeah, he's an evil reputation. He'll drink with you tonight and rape you tomorrow." And I
was like, guys, what do you think you're telling her? He just threatened to rape her to her face.
To her face, right?
Why do you think she doesn't realize
I have no idea. Like, she sends Miro on his way with the wagon and says something like, "As long as you promise to toast to me tonight." You know, that is a nothing sentence. It means nothing. And then these two men are talking to her as if she really believes this man is her ally now and is going back to toast her name for real. It's such a weird fucking moment. But, you know, these two old men, and they are just, you know, well-intended, but really talking down to her.
They're having the same problem that these other dudes
are
having,
not
except
much,
they're on her side.
Exactly. Like, when we talk about how all these people are interchangeable, you know, you can just switch them out. Jorah and Arston are low-key is guilty in this moment. It's just another fucking parade of men actually her to death. But then, is this when she has to tell Jorah about himself, or does that come?
No, it's after Daario,
later, right?
Because she responds very positively to Daario, and that's clearly what like bothers him.
Okay, and so then another guy comes after Miro, and this is Grasden.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the spot because I'm still on Miro. Oh yeah, Grasden. I love. There are pleasure houses in Lys and Tiroche where men would pay handsomely to bed the last Targaryen.
Listen.
It's good to see you know who I am, said Dany mildly.
It's like he looks at when he comes in, he's like, because he comes right in fucking making threats, you know, and oh my god. She makes a mention when she's describing Grasden and she's talking about what he looks like, and she talks about he looks a little bit like fucking the guy that Drogon burnt up. Krasnus.
Right.
And I was just like, well, we all know how that ended, so I don't know why Jorah and everybody else is out here acting like she doesn't know what she's doing.
Ugh,
but it's
tiresome.
Fine. So he comes in and he is just like, I don't know what you think you're going to do here in Yunkai. But you might not have heard about us and our walls and how noble and strong like how proud our nobles are and how fierce our common folk are and all this shit. And she's just like, oh, that's fantastic because my Unsullieds have been bored. So
yep. My Unsullieds are bored, and my dragons are needing a little bit of training, further training on how to melt people's faces off.
Oh my god! And this goes back and forth, and doesn't she ends up fucking letting one of the Drogon like burns his little cloak a little bit?
This guy soils himself.
I love like she wrinkles her nose and just like, oh, you stink of the shit you just let loose in your pants. You have to go now.
Gross.
How embarrassing for him.
I really do love too when he's just like, you promised I would have safe conduct. And the way he delivers it with the audiobook, when it's followed up by her going, do all of y'all whine this much? It was perfect because he really does whine. His voice is so annoying.
She's just like, I just barely singed your little skirt or whatever it is. I can buy you a new one if that will shut you the fuck up. And she tells him, basically 3 days. Go back and tell your masters you have 3 days. By the end of the third day, I'm going to be up in that bitch, whether you open the gates for me or not. So go run tell that. And then we find out that, like, her plan is not to wait 3 days at all. She's going to ride tonight when no one is expecting her. And this is when we get Jorah just being like, but you told them. You promised. I love this sentence. You told the sellswords is like that's some honor-bound thing, right? They're fucking sellswords.
You're the one telling me that sellswords can't be trusted and don't trust their word on ship. And now all of a sudden I got to hold my end up.
Right?
Oh, okay. And then they they'll see us coming. And she's like, it's going to be dark. They're going to see campfires, which is, they're not going to see, basically. Like, no, it's fine. And when she's like, so what do you guys think? Jorah is just like, well, goddamn. Arston says the same thing, just like, yeah, you're a queen, all right. And I'm like, fucking about time.
Yeah,
Y'all
right?
keep this in mind.
Jesus Christ, we have to keep teaching you this lesson over and over again. So as it gets close to being time for them to ride out is when Dario comes back and they catch him, and he comes in with his sack of heads. What a weird thing to say out loud.
So much.
And immediately is like down on one knee, ready to pledge. And what is he like? Opens the sack and like just the heads roll out.
Yeah.
She's
like, wait, did you
queen.
do this? And he says, because you are so beautiful. Prendal talked too much and said too little. And Salor picked his nose as if his snot was gold.
All valid reasons.
Indeed. And I love when eventually she like asks him to swear himself, and the way that it's written, his submission was as outrageous as the rest of him. A great swoop that brought his face down to her toes. My sword is yours. My life is yours. My love is yours. My blood, my body, my songs. You own them all. I live and die at your command, fair queen. And I was just like, good Lord. Put it away, sir.
Is this too much to ask? Am I high maintenance? Does this make me high maintenance, y'all? Y'all can tell me. We're all friends here. I, for one, didn't feel like this was outrageous or over the top whatsoever.
I think that we're just discovering that maybe you have a little bit of a Dom streak in you, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all have our thing.
This feels like how it should be done. This feels like a Tuesday.
She's like, I don't know why this man kneeling and supplicating feels so right to me, but it's doing something for me way down somewhere. So yeah, might want to keep that in mind.
So he gets up, she accepts his pledge and sends him out into the night to go fight on her behalf. And she has to stay behind. And we have this lovely moment, or several moments, where her people are out fighting and there's really nothing for her to do but sit and wait for news to see how things go. And I'm kind of brushing over like the talk with Jorah, so let's talk about that real quick, because this is when she has to tell Jorah that he needs to fucking calm all the way down.
Is this the most satisfying thing?
Listen,
I swear to God, I forgot how good this is. I did not remember that she just really lays it out.
Yeah, she
like
does.
This.
She does. And it's done in a way also, like, it's brutal, but it's like not malicious.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know? It's just fucking cold, hard facts. It's one of those things that nobody wants to say that absolutely needs to be said, so we can get it out there and hopefully get it done with. Even though I suspect, if the show is any indication, this does not get it done with. And that he continues to go on like longing for her for quite some time. But I really love this moment when she just tells him, look, you have been a great friend to me. You're better than any other friend I've had. You've been a better brother to me than my real fucking brother was. You know, you mean the world to me. I value you. I cherish you. But hold up.
Yep.
I do not fucking desire you. And I'm tired of it.
Mm-hmm.
And stop trying to push every man that pops up away. Like, having no competition is going to be the thing that makes me love you in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to hear.
I do really appreciate too him being like, well, that's not what I said. And she's like, do you think, the way she phrases it is that I can't hear the words behind the words.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my favorite, because people so often will just hide behind, well, I never actually said it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you did.
Yep.
You know you did. We know you did. Let's stop this.
Because she's to his face, like, you have been on, because Jorah's like all the shit he says about him, and then he ends it with, and even his beard is full of shit, which is such a weird fucking thing to say.
I love that.
Even his beard wears false colors.
That's one of those where it just feels like a way for a dude to just be like, and he dresses like a girl, but without saying it, you know?
It's all the reasons you can't trust this man. And then I'm going to sum it up with, he dyes his beard. And this is when she has just had enough. And she's like, listen, you have been ringing that same bell every day of our journey together. First it was this, then it was that, then it was Pyatt Pete, then it was Zero, and then it was Belwas, and then it was Arslan. And I appreciated that list because I was like, you know what? She is fucking right.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we meet a new dude that shows up across her path, we have to listen to Jorah lecture her about how her instincts are worthless and she shouldn't trust this person that's presenting themselves as an ally to her.
Mm-hmm.
And while having that type of sort of a certain amount of healthy cynicism is important, it is really starting to feel like exactly what she is accusing him of, that his counsel is not always coming from a place of just what's best, you know, for her and her agenda, and more based in his own feelings of being threatened by basically any other man that's in proximity to her. And she finally calls him out on his shit, and he can't do nothing but say, if my queen commands, and leaves. And you're goddamn right, she commands it.
Indeed. Yeah, I had just like, and I don't know if this happens in the show, like if she has this kind of confrontation.
I can't remember at all.
But it is really, really satisfying to read after having forgotten how direct she is about it. I just didn't recall that him acting friend-zoned is really addressed in just a very straightforward, like, hey, guy, yeah, you have to stop acting like you still have a chance and you're just waiting to like, no, I don't want you. That's not happening. Either accept that and do what you're told or leave.
She says, like, you act like you need me to rely on only you. Like, you can be the only person in the world that I can trust, that I can rely on. And she's like, it's not going to fucking serve, which is your function is to serve me. And it's not going to make me love you any better. You know, and it's so funny. In the discourse around Hot D, you know, there's been all kinds of comparisons to characters from the original series, and one of the ones that kept popping up was just like how stalwart Jorah was, right? What a loyal companion he was. And especially I saw it a lot with people talking about Kristen Cole to Alicent.
Okay. I'm sorry. I don't, whatever.
Right.
I have very strong opinions, as we all know. We don't need to get back into it.
But yeah, there is a segment of the world that also I got reminded with Hot D being out. I got reminded of how many people really did not like Daenerys at the end of the show. I forgot how many people really did like the storyline of her turning into like the Mad Queen and having to be killed, and felt like it was inevitable and that the show was always going there, you know? So there was a lot of people talking and basically like, you know, just fuck her. And, you know, she should have gave my man Jorah some play because he was the only one that even cared about her. And I was just like, word? Is that what we all think?
It is wild out in these like fucking unschooled streets. I cannot with just the normies anymore. I can't do it. I have got to. It's so hard, y'all, to come past these threads where people are talking this kind of shit and not say anything. But I have to, because I will spend all goddamn day shaking with rage at their interpretation of an entirely fictional character. Like, this is worth my goddamn time. It is not, and I need to learn that it is not. So yeah, she has this moment alone with her dragons for a little bit. And this is when she's thinking about how I am not going to have kids. So I guess the dragons are going to have to be my kids because they'll outlive me for sure. Yeah.
There's the way that this is introduced in this way. It's so like quiet and really sad in a way that I wasn't expecting. And it was, very emotional, just being like, oh wait, that's right, she can't have children, or she believes at this point that she can't have children. And I guess that is really sad for some people. Like for me, obviously it's not. So I will sometimes, in my own being sort of wrapped up in my own point of view, I will forget that could be devastating, you know?
Yeah.
And then she can't sleep, and so she ends up asking Whitebeard, I think, to come in and tell her some stories about her family. And she wants to hear about her brother Rhaegar. And she's expecting to hear, like, you know, stories of his prowess and his success at tourneys, you know, and all that stuff. But instead, what she gets is a very different portrait of him.
Yep.
Which I don't know. It was interesting because Rhaegar is, you know, a character that exists off the page for us in many ways, you know, because he's already dead by the time this story starts being told. So this view of him, if I've heard this before, I had completely forgotten, because I don't remember ever hearing like Rhaegar talked about this way.
Oh,
this
interesting.
This sort of like melancholy, you know. Would have preferred to play his harp than like be out fighting, you know.
Yeah.
And there was like a deep sadness to him that I just thought was really interesting. I really, really enjoyed this little story about Rhaegar. And it was really funny too, because in the next chapter with Arya, we get another. Oop! There's my Speakly notification.
Your what now?
It's another German language app I have on my phone, and I get those little messages like, you didn't practice today, because like just having one Duolingo owl harass me isn't enough. I have to have like 3 other apps that also harass me to study.
I don't know how you people are out here living with your phone sounds turned on. Like,
says
how?
Says the girl whose like caffeine alarm is probably going to go off in 25 minutes.
Literally, the only things that I have are alarms, which are supposed to make noise.
This is a new app for me. I just installed it like 3 days ago, so I haven't gone into my settings to disable anything.
But you still have the sound turned on.
Oh.
Like, even if I don't disable my settings, it's just going to vibrate. It's not going to, you know?
Yeah, no.
It's crazy to me.
I know. Yeah, what can you do? I guess you could turn the sounds off.
Just like
every time I do it, though, because I've turned the sound off on my phone multiple times, it always ends up back on. And I don't know what it is that I'm doing. I don't have any memory of making a choice to turn the sound back on. So I don't know if it's automatic or if I turn it off and then miss something and get really annoyed and then turn it back on. I'm not sure. But you and I have had this exact conversation, and you've walked me through how to turn it off. Because
it's just a switch on the side.
On the side, right?
Yeah.
I've flicked that a bunch of times, and I still always end up with my sound on.
Huh.
Yeah. But
that's weird. Okay.
it's
what can you do?
My phone is from like 15 years ago, so the rules don't apply to us. We're out. It's the fucking Wild Wild West out here.
That might be true.
So yeah, he tells the story. She asks about like how many tourneys he was in and how successful he was. We get the story. Oh, that's what I was going to say about Arya when she gets to hear a little bit about the same tournament at Harrenhal. And then she asks about what happened at the tourney where he crowned Lyanna as queen. And Daenerys is just like, but his wife was sitting right there.
Mm-hmm.
And yet my brother still gave his favor away to someone else. How could he do all that? And was it the woman's fault?
Yeah, did she treat him badly or something?
Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, not really. I can't really say. What I knew of her, she was like good and gracious, but she was delicate and her health wasn't always great.
Mm-hmm.
And then she tells Whitebeard also that when she was a kid, Viserys used to tell Daenerys that it was all her fault.
Yeah,
that
of course.
Everything that happened, right? Because she was born too late. So apparently, Viserys had decided that if Daenerys was older, then Rhaegar could have married her. Then the thing at the tournament with Lyanna would not have happened. Then they wouldn't have been plunged into war, and the Targaryens would still be on the
weird
throne.
Assumption,
right?
But sure.
That's a lot. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, you guys. So yeah, Viserys has decided that all of the fallout that happened could have been avoided if Daenerys had just not been so rude to be born last.
Indeed.
And that is a wild thing to saddle your little sister with.
He is just such a weirdo.
He really was, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny too. I don't want to keep making high tea references, but this is the world we live in, kids. I don't know what else to tell you. But having gotten some additional Targaryen history, though, you know, the narrators are unreliable, it's really something to picture Viserys, Daenerys' brother, and then all the Targaryens that I just met, and being like, oh, y'all just been on some shit for a minute. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, because for Game of Thrones, it was just Viserys and Daenerys. And Viserys was gone pretty fucking quick at the first season.
Mm-hmm.
So they were just such outliers, you know? And there was no real frame of reference for what these people were like. Yeah. And now that I've gotten to meet some of them, I'm just like, oh, well, some of this shit is making a lot more sense.
Yeah, there's a certain feeling of exhaustion that I get from them. They're tiring people, in my opinion.
My God, they seem tired of themselves.
Yeah, there is a bit of that. Just like, look, we have to uphold this dynasty because of reasons.
Right.
And I'm not like super excited about it. It's my duty and I'll do it. But
there's like a fucking an old Simpsons joke that I'm probably going to misquote, but it has something to do with Rocky movies. But the episode predates some of the sequels that we've had since, right? But the joke is basically like Rocky 7, and the tagline is just, I'm so very tired, or something like that. And that's what like the next season of Hot D could just be called. Like,
oh my God.
We're all just so tired.
Like, it really is just enough already.
But
so yeah, and I really enjoy that throughout this whole telling, Arston is very reticent about saying anything to Daenerys that doesn't make Rhaegar sound like a giant badass like warrior who nobody could stand against.
Yeah, he's being really, really careful about how he tells her things. And some bits she has to kind of like coax it out of him, you know, where he just is like really reticent to say. And there's a line he says, at one point Daenerys is getting a little like petulant about it, and she's just like, you make him sound like a fucking bummer. And he says, no, he wasn't sour, but there was a melancholy to Prince Rhaegar, a sense, and then he doesn't want to finish the sentence. And she urges him to complete it. And he says it was like a sense of doom. He was born in grief, and that shadow hung over him all his days. And the grief is, I don't know what that's about. Like,
I think it will. I'm going to go to the notes here and just see, hints about more. Okay, sorry. Some of this is like spoilery from Austen, so I'm just trying to make sure I go around that. There is some. I'm unclear on how much I should tell you about what we know about Rhaegar, and because not all of it is like in the text here exactly.
Okay, well, there's a mention of something about Summerhall,
right?
And I don't.
He was born during that disaster, says Austen. Yeah. Summerhall is, I think I've mentioned this to you before, the burning down of this like very important property in a way that we think is connected to a dragon in some way, but nobody actually knows what happened because apparently like there were practically no survivors. He was like so young.
Okay.
And so it's the sort of thing that is an ongoing mystery even now. And there's a lot of theories about what it could have been, and potentially like a dragon that they didn't know about being around even, you know? But yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's really interesting because I thought that dragons had stopped being a thing much longer prior to their birth of like Rhaegar and Daenerys and Viserys. But Rhaegar was born when that thing happened at Summerhall.
Yes.
So dragons haven't been gone that long. Why do I feel like this show was always like, there's been no dragons for 100 years?
I'm going to read this just like summary to you. Tragedy at Summerhall. A great fire broke out in the castle. And I feel like I've read this to you before, to be honest, but it's been a while. A great fire broke out in the castle in 259 AC, which was a serious blow to House Targaryen. The fire left the castle ruined and resulted in the deaths of King Aegon Targaryen, his eldest son and heir, Prince Duncan the Small, and the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Sir Duncan the Tall. It's sometimes blamed on one of the many Targaryen attempts to bring back dragons by hatching ancient dragon eggs. Corso was the last maester to serve at Summerhall. Prince Rhaegar was born at Summerhall on the day of the tragedy. He grew up with a complex fascination for the ruins. Here, he was happiest, yet also saddened by the memory of the tragedy. He liked to visit by himself and sleep in the ruined hall beneath the moon.
Okay, and that's what Whitebeard is telling her, that he liked to go there, and even his king's guards wouldn't go. He would go by himself, and he would play the harp and just sort of sleep in this ruined area. And he says this thing, Whitebeard says that when you heard him play his high harp, you could not but feel that he was singing of himself and those he loved. And Daenerys hears this and asks, well, what about Robert? Did he sing? And
it is just wild to think about how little she knows about these guys' personalities, because he like laughs in the way that I just did, because he's just like, oh my god, what? No.
She's like, yeah, he liked to sing some bar songs. He liked to go down to the club and like play trap music. And then he names these
There's
songs.
some holes in this house. There's some holes in this house.
And we find out that Robert, he'd sing a song or two at the bar, but they were like, one is called 54 Tons. Which it could just be tons of what, but knowing Robert, it's ass, right? It's got to be ass.
I'm assuming it's beer, but I don't know.
That makes more sense, but I think mine's funnier.
It's ass. It's all the ass.
And then right in the middle of this is when the folks come back, and we find out that the battle was wildly successful. Like, they think maybe they lost 12 people. And they have like 7,000 captives. And we do learn that Miro is unaccounted for. He got away, but they think that they're going to catch him. And that, I don't know what happened to the other guy, because she asked what was Grasden taken. And they say that he went to Yunkai to deliver her terms. but I don't think we get like the rest of that. Right?
Yeah, you're right. I don't think we do. Not in this chapter.
Yeah. So, and then the next day they go to greet the city, and she rides up, and this I remember from the show. She is greeted by just a horde of people from the city, mostly slaves, and they are all greeting her with cries of mother in their native language. So it's Misa, but then there's some other ones strewn in as well. Mela and Tato and Alala.
Sure.
But they're all just different, words from mother, and she gets that feeling again of like at one point Jorah is trying to tell her they should go back, and she's like, no, these are my children now. These are all my children. Yeah.
This is one of those scenes that works a lot better on paper.
Yeah.
But seeing it in the old on the silver screen, is it small screen? Is the silver screen the movies?
It is, yes.
What do you call the small screen?
The small screen.
That's literally it. We didn't come up with some better name.
I mean, there's a lot of pejoratives for it, but I don't think that's what you're looking for.
Boob tube, idiot's lantern.
I don't think I've ever heard that one before. Idiot's Lantern?
I hadn't heard that one either, but apparently that had been a thing.
I heard it called that, I'm not trying to use the word, but heard it called like the blank box. Was,
right.
All the time. But that one with the lantern at the end, that's pretty clever.
We need a better thing than small screen. I mean, come on.
There might be.
They're not even that small anymore.
Well, I mean... That's an excellent point. I don't know if there's any. I can't think of one. No, it's a small screen, silver screen, and a small screen.
I don't. Why? There's no golden screen?
No,
we just went right for silver.
We went
Why?
Right. Maybe because it was in black and white. I don't know what to tell you, ma'am. I don't know.
Look, I need you to give me all this information immediately.
Maybe because we had the golden age, so you couldn't have the golden age on the golden screen. You had the golden age on a silver screen. No, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know what they were doing.
I really feel like it should be the golden screen for the movies and the silver screen for the TVs.
Right.
I'm just saying. So
you
heard it here first. That's how it's going to be.
I made a note.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm going to right some wrongs today.
Finally, justice.
So
TVs everywhere. I'm going to start calling you mother.
Oh, me riding along on a sea of flat screens. That feels appropriate somehow. Anyway. All right. So let's go to Arya then. They go back to High Heart.
These motherfuckers are going in circles, and I am upset about it. When she said we are all the way back at High Heart, I said, bitch, what? I was so annoyed. Like, I have been traveling with them, y'all. I can't express how annoyed I was.
I understand.
I was so mad.
And there's not really an explanation in this chapter, and I don't remember if we're given one about why we go back here in the last chapters that we've forgotten about since. But yeah, it has definitely been a minute, and I was just like, oh, okay. So we're doing this again. And I really do enjoy, like, immediately the spooks. She could see High Heart stood above the rain. It wasn't above the wind, though. The gusts were blowing so strongly it felt like someone was behind her, yanking on her cloak. Only when she turned, no one was there. And rather than being like, oh, it was the wind, she's just like, oh, ghosts.
Right. That's right. Those goddamn ghosts. I love, too, that line that High Heart stood above the rain, because I mean, that is just such an interesting phrase. And the picture that it brought to my mind was really quite something else, like how fucking tall it must be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really, really like that. Stood above the rain. I don't know why, but that really stuck in my head. And they're, fucking Thoros is staring into the fire, trying to see some shit in the flames, but there is nothing happening. And I loved it later on. We find out why. Well, we find out what the witch says why. he can't see anything here.
Right.
I thought that was really neat.
So yeah, at this point, as he says, I'm granted visions some days, but not today. And I do really enjoy Gendry being like, my master said that you were like a full of shit goddamn grifter, basically. And Thoros is like, oh man, that was kind of rude, but like he is lying. Exactly. It was just not
right.
nice.
He's like, that wasn't very nice, but it's also very, very true. And also Thoros has no idea who the fuck Gendry is. So he's just, I mean, like he knows because he's traveling, but as far as like my master said this and that, so Thoros is like, did I know you? Mm-hmm. And Gendry tells him like who he worked for, and Thoros is like, oh, I absolutely remember that guy, which I don't know why, because for some reason I have it stuck in my head that, you know, a sword maker, every town has got to have a whole part of town, you know, the steel part of town. Mm-hmm. And then why would Thoros remember this guy? But he absolutely does. He remembers him very well.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I just was really surprised by that. And I also like that Thoros is like, every time he would watch me light my sword, he would be so mad. Mm-hmm. Like, I worked really hard on that, and you're just going to set it on fire.
And he charged him more than it was worth, which I like to think that it was in a weird effort to be like, maybe he won't light it on fire. Right. I charged him so much that he'll be like, oh, it's really not worth it for me to light it on fire this time. But it does not appear to have had any impact because Thoros didn't give a shit about shit.
He really does not, right? Mm-hmm. And he doesn't seem like money is really, not that it's not an object, but he just doesn't give a fuck about it. So yeah, I'm going to throw down some coin for a sword because I'm just going to go steal some more. So it's all fine.
Exactly. There's very much a sense with him of like, you know, life. I just do what I do, and we do what we do, and you do what you do, and everybody's happy, right?
It feels like he would be like the kind of guy that just smokes weed all the time.
Exactly.
And I guess really he just drinks all the time in the books. Like that's his thing, right? Mm-hmm. He even says when he's talking to Gendry about what his master had told him, he was like, when I was doing that shit, when I was a priest, let me tell you how I got down. It wasn't like I chose it. My father just threw me there because I was the youngest of fucking 8 kids. You know, and I did the shit. I prayed the prayers and I, you know, said the words, but they would also catch me with girls in my bed. I don't even know how they got there.
That bed, such wicked girls. Who knows how they got in there? What? There's something about that I found very amusing. Just like, oh, they were cold. I found them on the street, and I gave them something to eat, and they didn't have anywhere to go.
I was ministering to the flock, is what they always say.
Oh God!
And he talks about how he came to King's Landing because King Aerys loved fire so much that the Red Priests really thought that they might be able to convert him, like on some real like. Bring the king and then thus Westeros over into this religion because his obsession with fire was so well known. And that made me pause a little bit because I know, you know, what happened with the Mad King and how that shit ended up and that his madness was, I guess, awareness of it was creeping. Mm-hmm. But even before the awareness that he was really like lost his mind got out, his just general fascination with fire was well known enough that a religion that existed on the other side of the world that they know was like, oh, have you heard about this guy at King's Landing? We should absolutely send somebody there.
Yeah, it is just such an the whole idea of like a religion wanting the king to be on their side is such an this is a trope, like, of course, you know, but I just always am like, really? I just can't imagine like believing in something to the degree of it being that kind of important, where it's like
that you want the king to also have your same religion.
Yeah, because you're like so certain that that's gonna matter somehow.
It does matter.
I mean, I know, but I mean in a greater sense that it matters that everybody be of this religion. So if we get this one guy, it'll lead to the entire. Yeah. So if they do, so what? Who cares?
There's a weird, and you know, it's funny. People talk about it being in Christianity, and I'm not an expert. I know practically nothing about anything, But there is a weird numbers game that seems to come up with religions all the time, right? Like, there's never enough members. Like, no matter what the religion is, they're always recruiting.
It seems like there's a vibe of like, if we've got the most, we're the right ones.
I guess.
And,
I mean, there are some that have like very particular, religious ideas about needing to convert X number of people, and that's like the whole mission of the church,
Mm-hmm.
But then even churches, in my experience, that aren't like well known for recruiting, which is, there's another word for it, but I don't feel like stumbling over the pronunciation of it. But
What do you mean, like proselytizing?
Yeah,
I got you.
But yeah, there's just this weird undercurrent of, it's just like, you gotta get the message out. You gotta get it to as many people as you can. You gotta save as many souls as you can. And I like, is that part of the deal?
Apparently.
Like, it's not enough just to have a personal relationship with your God of your choosing. Like, that's not enough.
No, because it's not of my choosing. It's the right one. And everybody needs to know, and I'm doing them a favor, because otherwise they're going to suffer an eternal torment. I guess.
Like, I guess if in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, I guess if you were like an adherent to the Red God or whatever they call the faith, and you really believe in the prophecy of how like there's a darkness coming or whatever, then maybe you're like, oh, we got to get the king on our side because shit's about to go down,
Yeah, I guess so.
But other than that, for just specific for this book, I don't get it.
So yeah, he's talking about how like they always destroyed the swords this way, and Beric just comes in with fire consumes, and everybody stops dead.
Another fucking drama queen.
A little bit. And Thoros is like, hey, bruh, what do you mean? He's like, you know what the fuck I mean. I said this so many times.
Eric is so upset. 6 times, Thoros? 6 times?
It's too goddamn many times. And I can't even like disagree with that. That seems like an awful lot of times, Thoros.
It seems like a lot, Thoros, indeed. Especially where it also feels like every time Beric is like, don't bring me back this time. And then Thoros is like, well, you know what we should do? We should totally bring him back this time. It's got real big Sam and Dean Winchester energy. For those of you that like watch Supernatural. One of them
brings him back against his will.
Oh my God. Every season, one of them, spoilers, one of them dies and is like, don't bring me back. And then the next season is all about how that brother has to bring the other one back.
Oh boy, that is tiresome.
One gets trapped in purgatory. One of them gets trapped in hell. And they're always like, don't bring me back. And the next season, look who's back.
No, thank you.
I still love this show.
That's another way of doing the whole, like, we're going to have this couple that loves each other get separated, and the entire season is them trying to like find each other again, and we're just going to do that over and over and over. I'm bored.
It sounds like the last couple of seasons of The Walking Dead that I tried to watch.
This is what I'm saying. The other one that did this like nonstop was Once Upon a Time.
Oh, I never watched that. I have been hearing that this final season of Walking Dead is really good. I don't know who to believe, but I've been hearing people that stopped watching actually went back to pick up so they could watch this last season. But I still haven't watched it. I got tempted, but then I was like, I already have a lot of negativity in my life. So I don't want it. Just I don't want it.
The thing for me is just, if you've got memories of how bad it was, then maybe it seems good because you remember how bad it was. That doesn't mean that it's good.
Yeah, that's true. I think maybe it recovered and got back to maybe as close to where it was at the beginning, and people are just so relieved that it's not complete shit. That they're just like, oh, this is great. So, oh my God.
What?
So the weather is terrible. It's raining. And the little woman shows up again. Or where was she when we last saw her? We've seen her before, right?
Yeah, she was here. And she was getting the same song sung to her.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I thought when I was reading this. For a second, I thought that I was maybe reading the wrong chapter because I was like, this is all really familiar.
They're getting basically the equivalent of news from her because they are so confident that whatever she sees is happening or will, that it's essentially like them.
Did you call her Twitter last time we talked about her?
Did I?
I don't remember. I feel like you did.
I was going to make her the comparison to like, getting the Apple News updates on your phone, but Twitter also works because it's a lot less clear if it's real on Twitter, and you do have to follow it up. So I think that's probably more appropriate. Or she could be YouTube.
Yeah, because her sources she's not like citing sources. She's just saying shit.
She's just like, my sources are, I know it, you know it.
Everybody's talking about it. That's my source. So she wants a song and she wants some wine. She also wants a kiss, like a real good, juicy, messy kiss. And I forget who she wants it from, but whoever it was is like, absolutely the fuck not.
I think it's Lem. And she's just like, with a little bit of tongue. I'm old. I haven't gotten fucking tongue in a minute.
She's like, it's so hard to be so old.
And I was like, yeah, that must suck.
I said, yes, it does suck.
Listen, ma'am, I don't feel like you are in the position that you get to make this kind of comparison.
It's been too long. His mouth will taste of lemons and mines of bones. I am too old.
Poor thing.
So she decides, her regular fare, a song and some wine, and she starts giving them the news. The first one that she pops off with is that the king is dead.
Yeah.
And fucking Lim is like, which bloody king? God damn it. And this is we had this joke before, right? I can't remember when, but somebody tells somebody that a king is dead. And the person is like, well, there's 5 fucking kings running around right now. You got to be more specific. But I can't remember when that happened.
Yeah, same. But yeah, when she said the king was dead, I also had a bit of a moment of like, wait, who does she mean? But I don't know who she meant because we actually didn't see this one happen.
Yeah, but she says who she's talking about. But she says the wet one, the Kraken King. I dreamt him dead and he died, and the iron squids now turn on one another. Oh, and by the way, Lord Hospitali, yeah, he died too. But you guys already know about that. And in the Hall of Kings, the goat sits alone and fevered as the great dog descends on him. So she says that immediately after talking about Tully. In the Hall of Kings, what are the goat sits alone and fevered? What? Who? What? I don't know what this means, you guys, and I'm really sorry.
I don't think that I don't think you should feel sorry.
Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better because I don't know what this means, but I need to know. The great dog descends on him. I mean, that could be the mountain, right? He's big, and their crest thing is like a dog or something. I think even Arya talks about it a little bit later.
Yeah, she says maybe she means the Hound, or the mountain that rides. I almost said the mountain that rhymes. Gotta be a good rapper.
That's my next name.
I love it.
Yeah, so Arya is like me. We're trying to figure out what the fuck she's talking about, and the old woman continues that she had a dream that a wolf was howling in the rain, but no one heard its grief, and that she had a dream that was so loud that she thought her head was going to burst. And she dreamt of a maid at a feast with purple serpents in her hair. And later she dreamt of the same maid slaying a savage giant in a castle built of snow. This, friends, is a lot of foreshadowing, right?
Indeed, indeed.
Some of it feels like, I know what she's talking about. But then a lot of it, I don't know what the fuck she is talking about.
Okay.
It goes on. There's talk.
What do you think you know she's talking about?
Well, now when you say no like that, I'm like, do I really mean it like no? She dreams of slaying a savage giant in a castle built of snow. Feels like, some stuff that's going to go down at the wall towards the end of the story.
Okay.
But the end of the story for me is what the show did, which is completely separate from whatever is going to happen with these books.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know if maybe there's something coming in the books that isn't even about like the end of the story. You know what I mean? Like something can be coming up in the next book, like a battle or something. The saddest sound was the little bells. I dreamt of a maid at a feast with purple serpents in her hair. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. I don't know.
You keep apologizing. You don't need to apologize.
I just feel like there are people out there that like really pore over these things with a fine-tooth comb, and every reference means something, and triggers a memory or a thought process. And that is just not happening for me, y'all. I'm sorry.
That's fair.
But in the middle of this, she turns and Arya feels like she's looking right at her, and then because Arya's hiding in the bushes. And then she calls her right out and says, "You can't hide from me. You should come closer." And Arya does not want to do that. She does not want to come closer at all.
Yeah, I feel her on this.
And then it gets worse because she looks at Arya right in the face, says, "I see you, wolf child," calls her a blood child, says, "I thought it was the Lord," meaning Beric, "who smelled of death, but no, it's you." And she says, "You are cruel to come to my hill." And then she says, "I gorged on grief at Summerhill. I need none of yours." And then basically banishes Arya back to the dark. Like, get away from me. You're so awful and filled with evil and death. I don't even want you near me.
Yep.
So when an old, scary witch lady is like, "You are too scary for me," that can't feel good.
Yeah, she's so genuinely afraid that Arya is like, is she okay? Like, this doesn't feel great.
Yeah. Thoros immediately is like, "Don't scare her. She's a little girl. There's no harm going to come from her." And Lim is like, "Would you like to look at my nose?"
I did like that. I wouldn't be so bloody quick to say that. Yeah, what do you think of this? Like, it's later on, Arya is thinking about the people that she's killed and is feeling kind of sad about it, to be honest, which I appreciated in a way that she's just like has it in her still to reflect and be like, God, yeah. And I'm not even sure why I'm so sad, but
the old lady mentions that there's going to be a wedding at the twins and tells them that Catelyn is not at Riverrun anymore, that the Blackfish has it, and that Catelyn went to the twins for a wedding. And so they start kind of talking about, like, the men and the old lady start talking about that. But Arya is still feeling like, I don't know why that lady had that reaction to me, and I wasn't going to do anything to her. I wasn't going to hurt her. And what does she mean about my mom?
Mm-hmm.
And what do I think about what this lady says about Arya being like a death machine?
She's a death machine, and she don't kill nobody but you.
I think that this moment that you talk about, where it feels like Arya has a little bit of, I don't know if guilt is the right word, but yeah, like you said, she feels a little bad about all the murders.
Mm-hmm.
But she can't feel but so bad because they were all either justified or necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if this is like one of the last times we ever see her even feel this way.
Gotcha.
I can't remember exactly when in the show Arya stopped. Where they did a thing with Arya on the show when I call her a killing machine, like it's kind of like a joke, but they kind of did that. Mm-hmm. They kind of like divorced her from her humanity and made her almost like just like a little robot killing machine.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's how it's going to play out here in the books, but if that's where it goes, then that's what makes me feel like, oh, this is going to be one of those last times.
Gotcha.
We're getting towards the end of sweet little Arya, who just wants to go home and is killing to survive, killing to escape or whatever, to I am turning into someone who is going to be killing because I want to kill for vengeance. I want to kill to get justice for the wrongs that were done. So it feels like we're about to make that transition, especially with the way that her chapter ends with the Hound. I don't know exactly what it'll be like in the books, but I know that journey with the Hound was, and then of course the Red Wedding being like the very last straw. It feels like, of that's it for her humanity in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so this was like this old woman is reacting to Arya, and Arya can only base it on what she's done so far, and this is why she's thinking about the people that she's murdered. But it also really feels like this woman is reacting to what Arya is going to become, if we believe in the whole like her seeing visions or whatever kind of thing,
Yeah,
she's
definitely
scared of what the killer that Arya is going to become, not the one that she is as a little girl right now. Yeah.
So let's see. There's more to the. I'm trying to find it. Oh yeah, here it is. Beric says, "We're taking her to River Run," and she says, "No, you're not. The Blackfish holds the rivers now. If it's the mother you want, seek her at the Twins, for there's to be a wedding. Look in your fires, Pink Priest, and you will see." And I don't know why her calling him Pink Priest got me so hard.
It's really disrespectful.
It really is. It's just her being like, look, we know you're not real committed. Mm-hmm. You're not real red.
Yep.
So that's what I'm going to say. Not now, though. You'll see nothing here. This place belongs to the old gods still. They linger here as I do. Nor do they love the flames, for the oak recalls the acorn dreams the oak, the stump lives in them both, and they remember when the first men came with fire in their fists. Basically, you can try your little witchy crafts, and that shit is not going to work.
Yeah, we don't truck with that around these parts.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
And, yeah, they leave her to her wine and her song. And then they start heading towards a little village that's supposed to be up the way so that they can get out of all of this rain and bad weather. And she starts talking to this little boy that's been traveling, this kid named Ned, who is Beric's squire.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this conversation starts really, really innocently, He tells Arya how he came to sort of, what life has been like, and she asked him, this is what Arya is now in her life. She's just asking people, have you killed anybody yet?
Oh my God. And when he looks like, what?
He's like, ma'am, no. I am 12.
And she's just like, and?
Yeah, she's like, yeah, I was 8 first time I killed somebody. That is no excuse. But she keeps that shit to herself, though, and I was like, smart.
Yes. She's learning a little bit of tact.
Bit. And so he ends up telling her the story about pulling Beric out of the river and sort of guarding his body, which didn't really mean much because everybody ignored him because he had a giant lance coming out of his torso. And this is when Arya starts thinking back on some of the people that she killed. And then she says to him, my father was called Ned. And the little boy is like, oh, yeah, I know. I saw him at the tourney. I wanted to talk to him, but I didn't know what to say. And she starts to realize, I don't really know anything about this kid. Like, the tournament? My dad, like, how?
Yeah.
And then he says to her, don't you have a base-born brother named Jon Snow? And she answers it, and then she's just like, again, thinking to herself, the fuck? And then I got some information, you guys. I don't remember if this was in the show or not at all, but if it was, I forgot 10 years ago, because this is all new information to me. This little kid tells Arya to her face that him and Jon were milk brothers because his mother couldn't nurse him, and Jon's mother is who nursed him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, Jon's mother, I beg your pardon? Who, what now? And he tells the story of this woman named Willa.
Yep, that's the milk mother, whatever they want to call her.
And he says, oh yeah, Jon Snow's mother. He never told you? She was our servant for years and years. We go way back. How are you just, what? What?
So this is something that does, like, I won't say it gets, but like, in the show, I don't believe in the book, when at the very beginning, Ned and Robert are still alive, Robert asks him, he's like, you never talk about the boy's mother.
Okay, I remember that.
Who is she? And Ned says, Willa.
Oh my God, you're right. I just watched that episode.
He just like kind of throws it out there, and it's like, I think
that's just his standard story he's been telling for years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, y'all, Arya does not take to this news at all.
She sure doesn't.
She feels like you are fucking talking a lot of shit and fucking dishonoring my name and my family's name and my family house. She is not happy.
It's kind of funny because, like, Arya isn't an idiot and she knows what bastards are, but it's like she's never stopped to consider what it means that Jon is a bastard half-brother.
Right.
It's just kind of weird to me that, considering how heavily this weighed on Jon and that she and he were so close, this never actually was spoken of explicitly.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, especially when you remember just how young she is when all this starts, is one of those things that you sort of accept, like you understand that he's a bastard, but you don't make the real connection in your brain about, like, you can say one thing and then just end the sentence, you know, your brain doesn't go into the follow-ups. No, Jon's my brother, he's a bastard. I accept it, it's a fact, done. I don't think about it any more than that.
Right.
Because like you're a little kid, and then as you get older, you start connecting the dots. Like, listen, y'all, I think I told this story before. So I'm the youngest of all the kids. And my mother and father were married, and they got divorced when I was a toddler. Well, they separated when I was a toddler and got divorced when I was a little bit older. But I have an older sister who is not my mother's child.
Mm-hmm.
So I met my sister right around my 8th birthday. And they introduced her to me. This is your older sister, Michelle. And she's like a little over a year older than me. When I tell y'all, I didn't connect the dots that meant my father had an affair until I was like 12. I just didn't think about it. I was like, you have a new sister. I was over the moon because I'd always wanted a sister and never spent any more time thinking about it. Now, granted, my parents were already separated by that time, so it's probably because I don't think of them as a unit, you know, so I wasn't like overly like, oh my God, she destroyed the family. You know, it wasn't like that for me.
Yeah.
But real talk, it was a couple years later where I was like, let me do some math. You know, and really and then I like asked my mom, I was like, if I'm this age and she is that age and y'all didn't blah, 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 blah. And she was like, yes, girl.
Yep.
So yeah, sometimes little kids just don't be thinking about that shit.
Yeah, it's fair. Just a weird thing for me. Because Arya can be so practical sometimes that I think of her as always like just dealing with the facts of the matter and just being like, yeah, well, that happens. That's the way things are. Right. And her reaction here does make sense, but it did still catch me off guard because I was sort of thinking that she had already
got here on her own.
Yeah, you know?
Yeah. And then also too, like, I feel like a lot of it has to do with, I'm not going to try to say that Arya made like a conscious decision to be in denial about a truth of a thing. But I feel like on some level there wasn't an urgency to run to the truth of it because the truth of it would challenge her ideals of what her parents were, who they were, what their marriage was, you know. Now, I will say, I want to just really quickly, right in the middle of this bit where he drops that bit of news and she threatens to punch him in his fucking face, he tells her who he is, and who he is fucking Edric Dane.
Yeah.
Which is, this is new.
Yep.
Right? This was not in the show at all.
Correct.
This
as far as I remember.
This is outstanding. This little tidbit here. But I just want to circle back to Arya real quick, and just to sort of like, when he is trying to calm her down later on, not him, I think it's one of the grown-ups, either Tom or Lim or somebody, they're trying to, because Arya is feeling like, he just shattered my whole image of what my parents had, you know, and all that. And he's like, well, no, your father wasn't even betrothed to your mother when this happened, you know? And I stumbled on that because I thought that Jon and Robb were really close in age.
Gotcha.
Right? I thought I had read it somewhere that they got married, or maybe it's what the show said. Maybe Caitlin says it in the show, that her and Ned got married, and then Ned immediately went off to war, and then he came back, and she had Robb, and he came back with Jon. But
yeah, I feel like that is how they put it there.
But this clear, but in the book here, they're clearly saying that no, that's not what happened. When whoever Ned fathered Jon with would have happened before he was married to Catelyn. So I thought that was just like an interesting change of detail.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure why they made the change for the show, but you know, who knows what they do and why. But yeah, so this kid is Eric Dane, and this is a whole new thing for me. Which
I'm
was
not
fun.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure that like what they're saying here is what Catelyn in the book is supposed to think either. I think I'm thinking that this is like a version of, because nobody really seems to know totally for sure what's going on with Jon. And so there's a variety of stories that circulate because everybody's just kind of guessing.
Yeah. I wish I could remember where the thing from Catelyn saying how it went down, whether that was show Catelyn or books Catelyn. I can't remember. So she finds out who this kid is and that he's, you know, somebody, you know, and she apologizes for not knowing who he is and all that. And she feels a little like embarrassed of her behavior when she finds out who he is.
Yeah.
And then she is just wrestling with the idea that Jon has a mother and that her name is Wylla, and that she really hopes she can remember so the next time she sees him, she can tell him.
Yeah.
Because he always wanted to know.
Poor Jon.
And so then this kid starts talking about his father, and that someone named Lady Ashara was his aunt. Ashara. Yeah. I don't know if, like, I feel like none of this is part of anything that I'm familiar with.
No, we've talked about this before, actually.
Okay.
Because there was a theory about how Ned was actually pretty in love with her before his brother died, and he kind of had to marry Catelyn in order to sustain the deal that was made there.
That's very similar to the story that this kid is selling. You know, that they had met and at the big Harrenhal tournament, I guess. Or I don't know if it's a tournament, but they met at Harrenhal. And poor Arya is just like, why did she jump in the sea?
Yeah, I think she's kind of feeling like, did my dad do her so wrong that she killed herself because of something he did? Like, I think there's a vibe there.
There's also, out of nowhere, like Sansa shade.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like, completely out of left field. She's just like, if Sansa would have sighed and shed a tear for this bullshit. But I just think it's dumb.
Both things can be true.
Oh, boy. So, yeah, she's like, you know, did someone break her heart? And then Ned does like Whitebeard is doing, where all of a sudden he's like, I'm not sure how much of the story I should really tell you. You know, I don't want to get you upset, and I don't think I'm going to say what you think you want to hear. So he says to her, well, what my aunt told me is that your dad and my aunt fell in love at Harrenhal, and then Arya just loses her shit. Like, that's not true. He loved my mother. She was the only one he loved, and you're just full of shit. And then for reasons I don't understand, Gendry pipes up. Oh, so I guess Jon just fucking grew up under a cabbage leaf or some shit.
Yeah, this is interesting because earlier he said something because, you know, Ned complains about his hair and he's like, then go shave your fucking head or shut up. Mm-hmm. And she's like, man, he really does not like Ned. And I think that he is kind of fed up with like nobles right now.
When Ned introduces himself truly and says that he's Eric Dane, Gendry is in the background and he just makes like a groan. Just like this loud, like, ugh, kind of thing that happens. So yeah, I agree. And then, I want to say something else later where he's just like, oh, more lords and ladies. You know, like he's just fucking over it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a sense to me of just like, oh, really? Your dad could do no wrong. It's only us poors who would ever do something shameful, but never your flawless fucking families. Shut up. Where did you think he came from is the vibe.
And then he starts being like, well, at least your dad fucking raised his bastard, not like my dad. And then like delves into this whole other sort of deep well of resentment that Gendry has for these men that go out here and make these babies and then just fucking bounce.
Yeah.
Which, you know, he is right to feel that way.
Indeed.
And then he says something like at the very end, Gendry says something like, if I ever knew my dad or if I met him or something, I'd probably beat him bloody. But
he says that his mother had said every time he acted up, if your father was here, he'd beat you bloody.
No, I'm talking about the part where Gendry says, well, if he were here right now, I might be the one to beat him bloody.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And then he finishes up with like, well, he's probably dead, and now your dad's dead too, so it doesn't really matter who they fucked. Mm-hmm. And like, just puts the kibosh on that conversation, like he just doesn't want it. And he wasn't even part of the conversation, which Arya says to him, but he interjects and kind of shuts the whole thing down.
Yeah. I kind of sympathize with him here, just being like, the fucking dramas with y'all. Ugh, sick of it. Especially later on when they're talking about like this battle that went on and how eventually the lords made up, but the people who died didn't do them any good. And there's a look that Gendry gives Arya in that moment, and it felt to me again like him being like, yeah, y'all just don't care and don't get it, you know?
Yeah, it's for Gendry too, like thinking that he is traveling with peers, like, you know, first Arya and then finding out that she's actually like highborn, and now this Ned kid, and then to find out, oh, he's just another fucking snotty nosed highborn kid, you know. And also Gendry has now pledged to ride with these, what is it, the Brotherhood? So he is sort of very much leaning into his I'm a man of the people, you know what I mean? Kind of thing. And Arya and this Dane kid, they might as well be the fucking 1% as far as Gendry is concerned.
Indeed. Yeah, he's one step away from, I'm gonna kill him and eat him myself.
So Arya leaves because this is too much. And she's just really angry, and she asked one of the men about Dornishmen and don't they lie, because she is ready to just discount everything this kid has told her. She wants somebody to be like, yeah, he's full of shit. You can't trust a word that comes out of his mouth. Which also I've done that.
Yep. And I love that he's just like, oh, yeah, they're famous for lying. But then people say that all my people are also famous for lying. So who the fuck knows? I might be lying to you about the fact that he's a liar.
Right. You just never can tell. And she's about to tell him everything that Ned said. And he's like, yeah, I already know. He told me. And he understands that the boy has just related the same story about Lady Dane and tells her, yeah, it's old. I've heard it before. I even heard it at Winterfell. You know, like this is a story that just goes back. I don't think there's any truth to it. But even if it were true, and this is when he starts talking about, like, Ned would have met this woman while his brother was still alive and was, betrothed to Catelyn. And so it doesn't dishonor your father in the way, even though low-key, I guess, getting somebody pregnant out of marriage is a dishonor of its own. But it's really funny.
Yeah.
In this world, it is not a great dishonor for a man. So basically, he's like, yeah, your father, if he did, sire a bastard, it's not a big deal because he wasn't married at the time. No, no harm, no foul. Which, again, after having just watched this first season of House of the Dragon, you're just like, oh, yeah, that's right. It wasn't a big deal when the dudes did it. Wasn't.
Meanwhile, she would be unmarriageable.
And then Arya is just like, yeah, but she killed herself because this is really weighing on her because she's doesn't want it to be her father's fault that this woman killed herself, and she needs and wants someone to be like, no, that's not what happened. And he says to her, well, she did kill herself, but she had a real rough go of it. She had lost her brother, and that is what really broke her heart. And just let the rest of this go is the advice he ends up giving her at the end.
Yeah, so there's a lot of notes here from Austin. Some of them are spoilery or just may remind you of things that you have forgotten and that I don't want to remind you of. But there are some things that I did want to mention. He first talks about how the part where the ghost of High Heart reacts to Arya's, like, aura, for lack of a better word, her impression of Arya's future, perhaps, is a moment given to Melisandre later. And I remember that scene where she's like, I see green eyes, black eyes, blue eyes, eyes that will close forever.
I remember that. Was that around this time?
I think it's supposed to be similar. Like, Melisandre sort of takes the place of this lady with the visions that she receives. They make her kind of a bigger character in some ways. And then it says, this is a weird thing, but some people have theories about Lemoncloak being described by the ghost as being an oaf in yellow with his kisses tasting of bones. There is a theory he is actually Richard Lonmouth, a knight whose sigil is kisses and skulls on yellow. Why is this important? Richard was Rhaegar's squire and was with him on the day he would have first met Lyanna. People speculate he could be someone who knows about Jon's parentage, or at least knows the truth about Rhaegar and Lyanna. And then the ghost gorged on grief at Summerhall and Jenny's song. And he says a summary of what happened at Summerhall with the ghost. And it says the Mad King's, during the reign of the Mad King, let's see, sorry, I'm getting twisted around here. During the reign of King Aegon the Fifth, V is 5, right? I can never remember. The Mad King's grandfather, his eldest son, Prince Duncan, abdicated to marry a peasant witch named Jenny of Oldstones, who was likely the ghost's daughter. This appeared to have been smoothed over by the ghost, who prophesied the prince that was promised would be born of the line of then the young Mad King. And then Arya talks to Edric Ned Dane, and Austin says the most likely truth is that Wylla just served as a wet nurse to a newborn Jon when Ned Stark arrived at Starfall to return the Sword of the Morning and talk with Ashara Dane. But this raises a bigger question. How much do the Danes know about Jon? Arthur was guarding a pregnant Lyanna. Do they know the whole story? We also have the story of Ned and Ashara. Did she commit suicide because she couldn't be with Ned and because he killed her brother? There is some speculation later on about an alternative explanation, which I won't get into. It's mentioned, but I won't say it to you.
Okay.
And then, regardless of any of these theories, the least we know is despite everything with Ashara and Arthur, the Danes still seem to respect Ned. They gave their heir to their house a nickname after him, which does say something. So, yeah. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. I had got my people confused, and I forgot at first when I was reading that the Morning Star was the guy that Ned had to fight outside the Tower of Joy.
Right.
Not somebody that was on Ned's side. I got him like momentarily confused with fucking Jojen and Mira's father. And I was
gotcha.
like, and then I had to be like, oh wait, no. The morning, what is it? I just said it. I just said it. What was Arthur Dane called? The morning?
Sword of the Morning.
Sword of the Morning. Thank you.
Mm-hmm,
Jesus Christ. Got him really confused. And so at first when I saw that the kid's name was Edric Dane, I was like, oh, great. That's Ned's friend's son. And then I had to be like, oh, wait, no. That is the opposite of what that is.
So we then get the some potential news about their whole plan for where they were going, what they were going to do with Arya, and that there's been a wrench thrown in the works. Yeah, so they were all going to go to River Run and ransom her off. That was supposed to be the plan. But now things are different because they don't believe that Catelyn is even there anymore, that Tully is gone, and that the person in charge is the Blackfish, and Arya has never even met him. So now there's a question of whether they would even pay for Arya. Would the Blackfish pay for a girl that nobody can really vouch for, you know? Yeah. So
that throws a little bit of a wrench in the plan. And I want to say that there's something else that popped up too that I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember what we're... Something about Lannister. Oh, it's because of the thing that Thoros sees in the fire. Right. That's how the Lannisters come into play here. He sees roaring lions with like blood on their paws or some shit, right? Mm-hmm. And he's just like, well, this can't be good news for us.
Yeah, he's like, at one point, look, I misread the flames sometimes, but this feels pretty basic. Yeah. I'm confident I got this one right.
I feel like they telegraphed this one right to me. Yep. And yeah, River Run is not where we're going to go. It is going to be surrounded and be an island of flame, and that is no good for none of us. And then fucking Beric is like, we're going. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and I love that there's a minute where everybody is like, he just says, I do not mean to be taken. And everybody hears the word alive, even though he didn't really say it.
Indeed. This man is exhausted and wants to sleep.
He really just wants them to let him die and just like stay dead for the love of all that is holy. Would you please just let me stay dead? And meanwhile, Thoros is in the corner like, I don't think I'm going to want to do that.
And his plan is, I want to know where the armies are, the wolves and lions both. Sharna will know something, and Lord Vance's maester will know more. Acorn Hall's not far. Lady Smallwood will shelter us for a time while we send scouts ahead.
And that pushes her over the edge, because now we've already went backwards and ended up at High Heart, and now we're going all the way back to Lady Smallwood's place. Mm-hmm. And she is like, I just want to fucking go home. I just wanted to go to River Run. And you know what I should have did? I should have left fucking Hot Pie and Gendry behind. I should have went on my own. And she is just like, I could have been there by now. Yeah. Which I don't know if I 100% believe that.
Her by herself? I don't think so.
You know, I mean, it's really a nice fantasy to think that she would have just jumped on that horse and been able to stay safe and travel that great distance and reunite with her mother. But the way these people are roaming the lands, you know, raising villages and leaving ruin and wreckage behind them, whether it's like the armies of the Lannisters or whoever else, I don't think she would have been okay.
Yeah, Arya's smart and she's sneaky and she's like got the kind of paranoia you need to stay alive, but that doesn't mean that she can't just suffer from bad luck or get injured and wind up someplace, you know, like
she's like 10 minutes from the main camp. She runs away because she just gets so overwhelmed with the notion of where they're going to be taking her. Mm-hmm. And she runs and it's like fucking 5 minutes from camp and she gets snatched up by the Hound. Yep. So I feel like that supports our notion that she probably would not have had a good way.
Yeah, I believe that she would get further than most of her friends would, because she is willing to just eat a worm.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
Really,
yeah.
That's all it comes down to.
Hot pie is not surviving. Nobody's nothing.
Same.
This man is like
hot
me.
pie. Me. Same.
Yeah, he appreciates the comforts, and that does not make him a bad person. Gendry, I think, would run into a lot of problems as well because he, I don't want to say he's not very smart, but he, I don't know. He doesn't
know the sigils of people.
Yeah.
So I think he wouldn't know necessarily who to cooperate. Like, he knows the fucking Starks and Lannisters.
Right.
But
the
intricacies of who to talk to and who not and whatnot.
Yeah.
Although he might have stayed at Harrenhal and just been
that's true.
Smith.
Yeah, because he, you're right. If Arya doesn't basically strong arm them into leaving Harrenhal, they both would have just fucking stayed.
Yeah.
So it's not even like they would have had to try to risk it on their own. So yeah, she leaves because she's just overcome, and somebody snatches her up, and it's the Hound. And I knew he was coming. I've said multiple times, I can't remember exactly how he gets his hands on her in the show, so I have no memory of if this is how it happens on the show as well. But he snatches her right up, and it's just like, she's like, I was going to go back, because she doesn't know who it is. She just assumes it's one of the guys.
I love this so much. And he's like, were you? Well, that would have really sucked for me.
Yeah.
But thankfully, you're mine now.
Yep,
Lol.
You're mine now. And the last thing she's thinking is that she remembers the question he asked her a long time ago, which is, do you know what dogs do to wolves? And the answer is, I do not remember.
I have to assume that they fight them.
I would assume. I feel like because he said it, he seems confident that the dogs are victorious. In my imagination, that shit goes a different way. But what do I know?
I'm just like, anytime you're trying to put a dog up against a wolf, I'm not feeling the dog.
I mean, I watch all day on TikTok videos of cats completely sunning dogs all day long. So I just like
is sunning beating? I didn't know that slang. This is a new one for me. Rashawn.
Oh, it's old. I don't think the kids say it anymore. When you sun somebody, like SON, like you taking somebody and you are putting them like
son.
Yeah, you're putting them down in their place. You're like handling them. They're not.
I'm thinking
on your
you
level.
mean sun like SUN, like you're going out and laying out in the sun.
No. You will very rarely ever hear Black people refer to sunning like that ever. That's not really a thing for us.
My confusion was profound due to this. Yes. All right. Good. Cats, sunning dogs. There's a lot there. I'm just saying. So, any predictions for what's coming up?
No, I am looking forward to this part of Arya's story because, like I said, I enjoyed the Arya and the Hound show while it was on Game of Thrones, and I'm really curious to see what that is like in the book. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The show had them turning almost into like a buddy cop adventure kind of thing that was almost like funny most of the time. And I don't know if that's a choice that the show made or if that's how it's going to be on the book or if the book is going to be like way darker and brutal, And because like when I watched them on this show, I wasn't often afraid for Arya with the Hound, it wasn't like very menacing feeling all the time. And I'm curious if reading about it, I'm going to be like, oh, she's got to get away from him and she's got to get away now. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see how that's going to go. But yeah, no predictions or anything. It's nice to settle back into this story, but, coming off of watching the show the last 10 weeks. So yeah, it's just nice to be back.
Yay. All right. I'm going to say hi to new patrons real quick. We only have 3. But what a 3 they are. This week we have Rob Yurkowski, Hannah, and Alina Dragomir.
Hello.
Hell of a last name. Loving that. I don't know if it's a real last name, but I like it. Welcome to all of you. Thank you all so much for signing up. And depending on what tier you're at, you'll be listening to me and Miles talking about Sookie Stackhouse and eventually covering the True Blood TV show, which I'm like starting to look forward to so much, even though it's quite a ways away. But the show is just so absurd. And I joined this Facebook group for True Blood like fans, and they keep reminding me of really silly moments in the show that I forgot about. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be super fun to talk about.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, I am looking forward to all of that. And then if you're at the $10 tier, you can come to the lives of me and Miles talking about Sookie and the lives of me and Rashawn talking about Ted Lasso. And eventually, when we finish Ted Lasso, it'll be the lives talking about the Raybearer series. And then the lives talking about Cradle. Rashawn, I'm so excited.
Wow.
I can't even tell you. Rashawn?
Oh my God.
I'm so excited.
I always forget what we have planned for Unspoiled. And I legit told Steven that the lives were going to end at the end of Ted Lasso. And then we're going to go back to our regular recording program.
Girl.
I lied to my husband.
Say goodbye to those days.
Wow. He is going to be upset.
Gonna have to get a screen for behind yourself.
I am. I'm gonna have to invest in a screen because, yeah, when I'm recording you guys, I commandeer the office, and the patio is out off the office instead of off the living room like you would traditionally expect.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't smoke in the house, so we use the balcony. And when we're recording live, Steve doesn't come into the room because he does not. I'm always like, nobody fucking cares, dude.
Literally nobody cares.
Nobody cares. And he's like, no, I don't want to be on camera. Which, you know what? If it were me, I would say the same fucking thing. I can't even be mad. I would do the same thing. So I have to get fucking one of those screens. I don't know if I'm going to, like I saw a really cool, like, a green screen one that you can buy. That,
oh
like,
my God.
That, like,
if you just, oh my God, that'd be so amazing.
So it's not like really cute in the office though. You know, it's like, it's rad when you're using it, but for it to just be hanging out in your room, there's like nothing to it. But I've been looking at some because you can get some that kind of just like collapse and you just put it away for storage.
Yeah.
So I might do that. And that way he can like still come and go and not be on screen. And then he won't want to murder me. If he does, you all avenge me.
You're making me want to get a green screen now. I like my little background of my shelves and whatnot, and that's fine. But the idea of like being able to just like green screen is very, very exciting, and I kind of want to do it.
Yeah, I've been looking around. They aren't nearly as expensive as I had thought. So, yeah, maybe we should look into that.
Oh my! I'm just imagining the things we could do, and I'm like, well, we could have it be themed, and you're just like, you know, somewhere that has to do with the subject matter, and then I'm like, or it could be just like she's at a rock concert, and there's like who knows? It's outer space, the planet circling behind her, like,
you know, it's like all the Zoom. You don't use Zoom for anything though, do you?
Not a bit.
Not even.
The only time I ever use Zoom is for Patreon ambassador meetings.
I was just gonna say, what about your Patreon meetings?
Yeah.
But I use Zoom. Well, I don't use it much anymore, but I had used it a lot in the past. And they have all those background filters that you can just put on.
Mm-hmm.
And those are kind of fun. But the minute you blink, it like looks all crazy.
Yeah, so, there's like weird clipping that happens with parts of your hair and chairs and stuff.
There's a portable green screen that you attach to your chair, and that shit is $37. So we're getting green screens, right?
I love this so much.
I'm looking
at man.
Yeah.
I wonder how you like make a background. Like, so full disclosure, everybody, I am looking into taking classes on how to use the app Procreate on my iPad because I want to learn how to do illustration with an app so that it can be made into postcards or, you know, anything. And I just really am into the idea of being able to like draw my own background that I could use for something and have it be very specific to like an inside joke.
Yeah.
Just, you know, just as a little Easter egg or something. All right. I got too many ideas now.
You start, these things are like wild. Some of them are super cheap. I mean, they're probably not great, but like My God, there's one you can get at Five Below. How is that possible?
Oh my God, Five Below is such a wild west for like, I don't know what they're doing.
Did they have the one by the job? Was that open when you were still here, or you weren't here for that? Because there's one by the job.
I don't think it was there, because down here is the first time I remember noticing the name.
Yeah, they have a 2-story one right on Chestnut Street.
2 stories?
Yeah.
Good God.
It is filled with every bit of nonsense you can imagine. Shit that does not go together. I can go in there and get 5 pounds of candy and pajamas, y'all. It's like
5 pounds of pajamas. I'd like a healthy mix here. 5 pounds total. Give me some candy and some pajamas in there.
They have a whole back section that's just filled with like weird off-brand makeup, but also all kinds.
I'm so curious about that shit. It's probably going to make you break out.
Listen, I don't buy it because I know that like it's probably really
lead.
cute. Exactly. And the days of me being able to fuck around, like my hair salon, the hair place I go to, they sell like all kinds of hair products for Black women, and then like wigs and weaves and shit like that. But they also have a lot of makeup that's really, really inexpensive. But you know that shit is just going to make your whole face burst into flames. But I get so tempted because it's all so pretty, you know.
Yep.
Like if I see like a row of eye palettes, I'm just like, oh, I want every last one of those. And then
they do that like packaging that, you know, the minute you actually open it to use it, that packaging is irrelevant.
Yep.
But it's so tempting when you first see it.
So tempting.
It's a box shaped like a cupcake.
Right. And you're like, oh, it's only $5.99. And then you get home and then like you wake up the next day and your eyes are swollen shut and crusty because you use some cheap shit on your face. So you're just so I have to just be like, no. But yeah, Five Below is just it's one of my favorite places to go and not buy anything.
My favorite places to go and not buy anything.
I do.
Man, that is a very specific. We got to, you know what? I'm adding this to the unsober topics list. Is what like stores, like just shopping in general, and then we could do all kinds of shopping. But I like this idea.
Five Below hits me in the thing I used to do when I was young, in my 20s, when I was really broke. I'm still really broke, but when I was in my 20s, I used to do this thing where when I couldn't sleep at night, which was a lot for me, I would go to like a 24-hour CVS. And they had the big ones in the city, and I would just be in the makeup aisle, and I would spend like $10 because I could buy really cheap shit back then, right? And come out with like a little bag with like a lip liner, a mascara, maybe one eyeshadow, and I would feel like better. That's how I treated my depression at 2:00 in the morning. Was it like CVS?
It's valid.
Or Walgreens.
Yep.
And so Five Below hits that like. Scratches that same itch for me.
Yeah, for me, I go onto websites and fill my cart and then bounce.
No.
I do not buy anything. I do not ever come back and realize that dream. But I act like I am just going for it. And then they'll sometimes follow you up with those emails like, hey, your cart's still waiting for you. And I'm like, it should be.
Sometimes.
It should be waiting.
Sometimes they'll come back in the email and be like, and we gave you a discount.
Yep.
And that's how they really try to get you.
Yeah, there's one place that did that recently, and it was like a significant discount on something pretty expensive that would result in the savings of like $50. And I was sort of like, oh, nope.
I remember years ago, that was an actual money saving tip on some like news program, like on Good Morning America. They were like, fill up your cart and then leave.
They don't say that shit anymore, huh? They got some retailers going in like, you're one thing you're not gonna say again is to do that fucking shit.
Who gave you the right?
I'm trying to think of like, because similarly, there was no place to hang out in my town where I grew up in like middle and high school. So the thing we did was just hang out at Walmart because it was the only place that was like open pretty late and had a lot to do. There was stuff in the housewares as well. And they even had like a fabric section at that time. And with me and trying to make my own clothes and stuff. And so it was similar, but it wasn't 24 hours. I couldn't go over there by myself. I needed a ride. But yeah, this is something that I feel like we should really work on as a society, is like providing places for kids to just go that they don't have to pay for anything and just be, because it's otherwise, you know what happens? They go hang out by the train tracks and get drunk and then start to play chicken and die.
Yep, they go into the woods, light fires, drink beer.
Yep.
Start worshiping Satan.
Wow. Okay, that went a different direction than I was expecting.
That's what happened in the 80s. That's exactly what happened.
You heard it here first, folks. Satanic panic was real and valid, and everybody was right to be upset. All right. Anyway, so we're going to have shopping on our list. For those who are interested in what's going on for Unsober this month, we're doing Looney Tunes first. And then the next one, and the Looney Tunes is going to be happening on the second Saturday of the month, which is the 12th. And then on the 26th, we are going to be doing...
that feels like the Friday after Thanksgiving.
It's the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, Saturdays, right. I'm sorry.
And for that one, we're going to be doing the Colbert Questionnaire. Or the Colbert Questionert, if you want to be a dick about it.
The Colbert Questionert?
They spell it with the ERT at the end, the questionnaire, to match his name. But it's a series of questions that he came up with for interviews with celebrities that are supposed to encompass the entirety of the spectrum of the human experience.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah, and there was a link that I think Cam shared of an interview he did with Keanu Reeves where he used these questions, and it was awesome. And I was like, yeah. So I saved that, and we're doing that, asking each other those questions for that one.
I never clicked the link. So can I?
Which link?
The Colbert to the questionnaire.
Oh no, you don't.
I was just about.
You don't get to know ahead of time.
I was just about to ask you, should I stay away? Because the first thing I was going to do when we finished recording this was Google that fucking questionnaire.
It was start to polish your responses. No, it needs to be off the cuff. I don't even remember what the questions were except for like 2 of them.
I am so bad at stuff like this. That's okay. It'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be fine.
Why, what do you mean you're bad at it?
Answering questions, like you ask me a direct question on the spot. Like if you ask me, like, what do I think about a thing, or do I like a thing? I always have trouble coming up with an answer on the spot.
Did you hear that sound my stomach just made? Was that audible?
I didn't.
That shit was loud as hell.
Yeah,
I had my headphones on and I heard it. Wow.
All right, let's wrap it up so you can go handle it.
I don't know what's happening, but it's not good. But I disagree, and I think you're fine with handling questions, hence having a podcast that's mildly successful. It's a weird stance you're taking that I don't know where it's coming from.
I have no idea who I am a lot of the time. I'm just going to tell y'all, since we're all friends, I have no idea what kind of person I am. I really don't. Every day is a surprise.
Oh, man.
The way I see I think it's true for all of us, though, if we're honest about it. The way we see ourselves versus the way other people see us is often 2 very different things, you know?
Yep.
For good or for bad. And I am always just like bowled over when someone says something about me. And I'm like, really? For me?
My favorite, though, is when somebody really does see you and they like tag you in something.
Oh my God.
And they're like, this made me think of you. And you're like,
I love when that happens.
Yes.
I love that.
I had my friend Tegan tagged me in a how-to video where somebody was gussying up an old set, like a chest of drawers with like magenta and black paint with gold leaf. Mm-hmm. And Tegan was like, this reminded me of you for some reason. And I'm watching the video like, oh, I want to do this. I was just like, thank you, Tegan, for saying this reminded you of me, because I feel like that's a huge ass compliment. Thank you forever.
It is really validating when somebody recognizes your brand, though, right?
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's all about feeling and being seen. Like, oh, yeah, this is my shit. Thank you.
Like me seeing the grievance journal, and I had already bought you a birthday present. I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm buying another one. Did I tell you that Joyce shared a link of that to me and was like, this looks perfect for Rashawn like a month later?
No, I don't think you did. Oh my God, my brand is strong.
Yep. I had to be like, Joyce, guess what? I got it for her already. But yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that Joyce knows also.
Oh God. See, you know what? And then that's when being seen goes wrong, because then like your brand is too strong. You're like, oh wait, too many people know now.
Everybody's tagging you in the same thing. You get tagged in some shit happened 3 years ago, and you're like, yeah, no, I know, babe. Thanks, but this is tired now.
I start being like, oh wait, I'm not as mysterious as I used to be. I gotta pull it back. Gotta pull it back. The eternal struggle of wanting to be known and also wanting to be unknowable. It's a real thing. At least for me.
I'm like, can't relate.
No.
Wanting to be seen as unknowable, sure. But wanting to actually be unknowable, not at all. Not even a little bit. I want to have a reputation for mysteriousness that is shattered the instant you meet me. I want to be like somebody that lives on this hill that nobody knows what's going on because there's like some issue with just getting down to the town physically. So everybody thinks, oh, what's that lady? She might be. And then they come up and I'm like, guys, awesome. I've got some stuff in the oven. I also have these glasses of wine. And they're like, wait, what? And none of you are going to leave because I have to keep my mysterious persona up. So welcome.
That took a turn.
Yeah. It's a real cask of Amontillado situation, but for very different reasons. Want to come see my wine cellar? All right, everybody. We love you so much.
We do.
Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.